Got it. Saludos todos. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Tony Martínez with Negozi. And today we have una charla para ustedes, a chat about the Latino market. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month to everyone that is here and following us. So we have a panel, quick 20-minute chat. Feel free to comment, mandar saludos, say hi. Let's intro the panel and get right into the conversation. So first we have Cristina Huizar from Paychex. Saludos, Cristina, ¿cómo estás?
Hi, Tony. Gracias por tenerme.
Awesome. And you're located in Los Angeles, Southern California area. And the reason I'm saying that, because you'll see the panels actually across the country, which is cool. Next is Jackie Velez con Xero. Jackie, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, ¿cómo están? Soy Jackeline Velez. I'm the director of the U.S. Hispanic market here in the U.S. for Xero. And I can tell you a little bit about that before or after we get the next person, Arthur, to introduce himself.
Yeah, you can dive in. Go ahead and tell us what you do, Jackie, at Xero. And what does it mean to have like a Hispanic market director? Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar to what Cristina does and Arthur too. We're basically just targeting the Latino business community. For me specifically, I'm looking at more of the accountants and tax preparers that work with Latino small businesses. And most of the way that we're going to reach out to them or to be able to make waves is through education. So we really try to translate all of our educational content over to Spanish. We also will, work with anybody one-to-one who needs help in Spanish. It's also not just for people who have a language barrier. It's also cultural preferences. A lot of times we understand, and we're going to talk about this today, we understand how they do business a little bit more. And also, there's some non-Latino people that are in your community who want to work with Hispanic small businesses, which is a big part of our economy. So we help them out. And so for Hispanic Heritage Month, we also have an ERG, which is an employee resource group, which I am a co-chair of. So we kind of blends together, but we're doing a lot of different activities for Hispanic Heritage Month, like articles spotlighting different people within Xero who are Latinos, and a few different small businesses that we've been working with, or accounting partners that we've been working with that are under this umbrella. And we're also doing fun activities like recipes and a little bit of historical facts about different figures in our history of the Latinos. So yeah, I will pass it on to Arthur.
Awesome, thank you. Arthur, ¿cómo estás? Oh, you're on mute, Arthur. Yeah, there you go.
Sorry about that. Buenas tardes, hope everybody is well. My name is Arthur García. I'm based here in San Francisco, and I am the co-founder and COO of SOMOS, Ancestría.com. And I've also worked with this group here through ContaviAlliance.com. And I'm just excited to continue the conversation about providing education, insights, and and resources. I think, anytime we can get a panel together, Tony, or those that have access to resources and sharing those back with the community is a good thing, and sharing them with the appropriate people at the right time. And we know that we are in September, almost October. So as we get into the end of the year, and maybe a lot of the audience is financial services providers, whether they're tax, bookkeeping, accounting. Now's the time to talk to clients. Now's the time, if you're a small business owner, to talk to your accounting professional, your trusted advisor, before it's too late, before the end of the year. So there's a number of things to look at. So I'm sure we'll talk about some of those topics, but it's definitely good to be here with you again.
Yeah, no, thank you, everyone, for being here. And we have an audience also. Estamos en vivo en YouTube y Facebook y aquí por Zoom. In addition to us serving the Latino market, I've noticed we also serve the small business market. And so that is a growing segment of our Latinos. It seems everyone tiene un negocio, el primo, la tía, somos muy emprendedores, very entrepreneurial. And I when I met you, Cristina, you told me a story, or you always tell me cool stories about when you started in Los Angeles, right? You had to go and you obviously you got your training from Paychex to be sales, but then when you hit the streets, you notice, wait, I should just be myself because this market's a little bit different than the traditional market. Could you tell us a little bit about your?
Yeah. And let me take it a step back, you guys. I apologize. I didn't do a formal introduction. So my name is Cristina Huizar, and I'm with Paychex. I've been there for 11 years now this month. So what I do is I'm the multicultural manager for the west of Texas. And at Paychex, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory to many watching, but we are a human capital management company. We focus on payroll, HR, 401k, medical benefits, et cetera. So that's what we do. And we cater specifically, to your point, Tony, to the small market, to small business owners. And like you mentioned, I started about 11 years ago, and I started in sales here in the Los Angeles community. And that's exactly right. I took on the sales approach when I first started, and I realized that wasn't working in the community con la gente aquí en Los Angeles, in La Puente, East LA, City of Industry. It wasn't until I kind of made it my own and was able to speak with them more as a friend, as a consultant, rather than a sales employee, right? That they were able to trust me and really engage in learning and benefiting from the services that we were offering. So it's a very different transactional experience on both ends, both as a consumer and as the person that's trying to, teach them and navigate a service that they're unfamiliar with, which was payroll and human resources.
Yeah, because a dynamic that's very interesting when serving the Latino market is a lot of our comunidad, they're immigrants. They weren't born in this country. So starting a business in and of itself is difficult if you are here and you're born here and you understand the customs and the culture. But now to come to a new country, try to understand the different, not just the customs and what's normal, but also the rules and regulations, and sometimes in a different language, that could be a challenge. What do you say, Cristina?
Extremely intimidating too. Yeah. So, I think I'm going to say it, I'm going to throw it out there. I think it's in our blood, right? It's embedded in us to be hustlers, to be entrepreneurials, to want to start our own business, because we come here. The majority of the folks that come to the United States, don't necessarily have higher level of education in their, country of origin. So the only way for us to make a living and really survive is to think for ourselves and create a business, other than to work for, a company that might hire us for minimum wage. So when I meet with these entrepreneurs that opened up, let's say un restaurant mexicano aquí en Los Angeles, they hire their cousin and their friend's, teenage son, etc. There's still so much risk that goes with not being in compliance. But, como dices tú, somos emprendedores, nos aventamos, but we don't cross our T's and dot our I's, right? From the get-go. So that's why it's so important for companies like Paychex and all of us panelists here and the companies that we represent to really engage and be that resource that they don't know about. Because it's not that they don't want to do it, Tony, they just don't know about it. Because when I meet with these entrepreneurs and I tell them the regulations, and specifically here in California, right, it's so strict, they're like, okay, well, help me, let's do it. I want to continue to grow. And if this is the way, please teach me. So it's not a matter of not wanting to, it's not having the resource. So I think that's where the gap is.
Yeah, and that also serves as an opportunity, right? Because if they have a need, if this segment, and it goes to like basic business principles, right? There's a segment of the market that has needs. And you come in, whether with webinars, whether you walk into some negocio, you speak their language, which happens to be Spanish, but it's basic human communication, right? You speak their same language. That leads to an opportunity that you could serve that market and grow with them. Right. And I know that's what Jackie did in Houston. What's interesting about Jackie's story is Xero, I believe, is a New Zealand company, right? So across the globe, they come to the US and then they find out, wait, there's a sub-market within the US of these Hispanics, Latinos, and now Jackie's in charge of that strategy. But tell us a little bit about that, Jackie.
Yeah. So it's kind of like what Cristina said, like, I didn't really come in with that intention. It just starts happening naturally as you're being yourself. I really like how she said that. because part of being myself was, okay, Latino partners, like our Latino accountants and bookkeepers, they come to me with questions a lot of times when I was a partner consultant. So I was doing helping on the technical side of things. And so they would come to me and ask questions instead of their account manager because they felt more comfortable speaking to me, right? And that's when Arthur was still around and he was doing what I'm doing now. And during this time, I didn't realize like this was going to turn into something much bigger because I was doing it at such a small level first as a consultant. And then I started doing it when I moved into the market in Houston. So I started off that market. Then I started to realize that a lot of the accountants and bookkeepers needed help in Spanish, and they had a lot more questions, like what Cristina was saying, like they were willing to do it, but they needed a little bit more hand-holding because they weren't able to access the same resources. Like, for example, a more traditional partner, they might hear from somebody, in their network what they need to do, or maybe another family member, but we all just came here, so we don't really have that background or those resources, right? And so I pitched this idea to Xero that we should open up a Spanish market in the US and perhaps maybe go outside of the US as well. And we moved forward with it. And now our team is growing very quickly. We're starting to, we were doing basically certifications since I was in my role in Houston before I even had this role, which is basically to get training on Xero. It's like 6 hours of training. And that, me and Jose Zavala started that. And like I said, it wasn't even my role at the time, but it was huge. We'd always have so many people register because people just jumped at the opportunity to get training in Espanol for this type of technology. So typically now we have around 50 people getting certified every single time. And people just get so excited. And so we're constantly trying to come up with new content. Like, for example, we have things that are very specific to tax preparers because we know a lot of Latinos, they're not doing their bookkeeping, right? They're not doing their accounting because they, like Cristina said, they're not dotting their T's and dotting their I's and crossing their T's. I didn't say the backwards, but that they're not doing everything 100% complete. Not only Latinos, but a lot of small businesses in the US are more focused on the tax. And so we're really trying to bridge that gap between only looking at what they absolutely have to do and show them the importance of looking at their numbers, understanding the accounting and being a little bit more proactive because, and that's been a little bit tough because I know, like I'm Latina, I'm always late. I'm not the most proactive person by nature. So I have to really, go think back a little bit and say, okay, how can I be more proactive? How can I look more in the future? And I really try to give that baseline of understanding when I'm working with accountants or small businesses who don't see the importance of keeping their books and saying, look, this is actually going to help you in the long run. You're going to save money. You're going to hopefully get some tax credits. A lot of times they think that they'll owe more in taxes, but really a lot of times there's some savings. And this is the team that we have. This is our landing page, and this is showing me and Jorge and Luis and all of our different ambassadors. And our ambassadors are people who have their own, they're accountants that work with Xero, and they have their own practices, and they help us out on a contract basis. And so they're very helpful because their stories, look at Jose looking so handsome. Look at that, his headshot.
Yeah,
wow.
Jay-Z.
That's impressive right there, man. Looking so slick. I'm so proud of this guy. He's from Houston. Most of the half of the ambassadors that we have are actually from Houston. And, he was just getting out of public accounting at a different firm whenever I met him. And this was something that we talked about doing for so long. And he offered to teach the certifications. And this guy has just taken off. I've seen him do a couple of different niches, and he's just really grown with Xero. These are also all of our Spanish, son nuestros eventos en línea que son de Xero para enseñarte cómo usar Xero en español o algunas charlas que tenemos. Tenemos una charla el octubre el 7. On October 7th, we're having a discussion about, se llama Cómo administrar su dinero en el nuevo mundo, and it's on the bottom right side. Y ahí se puede registrar y te envío el enlace. Y ahí vamos a hablar con José Zavala, con Tony Martínez de Negoci, y también con Jen Hemphill. Y ella tiene un podcast que se llama Her Dinero Matters, y ella se dedica a ayudar latinas con sus finanzas personales. So we're going to have, the personal finance, the technology view, the small business view, and the accountant view in this discussion. So if you wanted to learn more, have another discussion like this would be a good opportunity on October 7th. But yeah, we're constantly having events. We're constantly creating new content. For example, we're creating more content on helping accountants and bookkeepers market. A lot of the, we are an accounting software, but we're really just not limited to that. We can help educate people on, for example, like marketing, social media, because accountants do need help with that a lot of times, especially Latino accountants, because they might not be specialized in that. They got their training in tax and working with small businesses. So yeah, we're constantly just growing. We have different videos that are translated now. We just translated a bunch of different like one pagers to help people do some very specific things in Xero. And yeah, to just show you guys how much more efficient your business can be and more profitable it can be from using a tool like Xero.
Yeah, no, perfect. And that's a good example. And right now I'm going to show Paychex página en español, but that's a great example of these big corporations, right? They're seeing the need of the Latino market, the Hispanic market, and it's in the US, obviously, but also across Latin America, where they're taking resources and time to translate these materials, to have positions of their team, of their employees, leading strategies around that. And I want to bring in now Arthur. It seems like your whole career you've been within the Latino market at different organizations, and I'm excited about the one you're at now. But before you talk about SOMOS, Ancestría, let's talk about your career. And I love your story, right? When you started off, I think it was with your family business, and you saw the need there, and it dove you right into accounting and payroll and much more. Go ahead, Arthur.
Sure. Thanks, Tony. It's always great to go back and, where you get your superpowers from. But yeah, I mean, I've got entrepreneurship in my DNA. My parents had a business when I was growing up, a taco truck, a restaurant, and then started my career in working in the accounting space. Spent 7 years at Paychex, another, just over 6 at Xero. So I'm familiar with the two panelists here, and just, everything involved in the education and reaching out to small businesses and helping them thrive and equipping accounting professionals. So I spent probably about 17 years of my career in that space in fintech, and that just gave me a foundation of understanding what the needs are on the vendor side and on the provider side. And now I've kind of gotten back into my back to my roots, as I mentioned, of entrepreneurship and starting a business. And I've learned a lot. And I recall a lot of times when speaking to accounting professionals about being prepared and equipped for what's unexpected, for what your accountants are not expecting. And that's where you find the value that your client will find. There's things that your client will expect you to do, which is compliance, a tax return, get them set up on payroll. But what they don't expect you to do is they don't expect you to create a workflow that's seamless for employee onboarding, with job descriptions, for business formation, right? A lot of accountants have the opportunity to advise their clients on the proper business formation, because a lot of times they'll listen to the TIA or the TI and what type of entity they have, and maybe an S corp isn't right for them, right? Maybe they should continue on as a sole proprietorship, or maybe they've been put into an LLC, but for some reason someone told them to get a C corp, and then it's just like, whoa, what just happened? So I think there's there's no question that an accounting professional, a tax professional, is one of the most influential advisors that a small business has. And I'm fortunate right now to see it from both sides, right? I mean, there's times where I've got my processes as running the operation here at SOMOS, and integrating a lot of these platforms that we've used. And at each step of the way, it's like, okay, this is where I need to consult our accounting professional, because I can get by, but there's certain points where it's just like, I do not want to mess with this. And you want to make sure that you have the right people identified, vetted folks that can help you. Not every accountant is the same. Not every tax professional is going to be equipped the same. Some tax professionals are going to focus on compliance and tax returns, while others are going to do more corporate returns and business types of consultations. And then you have another set that's doing tax planning. So not one accountant can do all things. So it's about what type of company you are, what stage, and where do you want to go, right? So if you're looking to raise capital, you're going to want to work with an accounting firm that's going to be able to help you put together a financial forecast for the next 3 years, 5 years. What's your burn rate? What are you forecasting for employees? Those are valuable spreadsheets, valuable forecasts that you need, that maybe a retail business or a taqueria may not necessarily need to have. But at the same time, they do need a forecast. They need to know and have an idea of how much money they need to make, how much money they want to make, and what's it's going to cost them. It's just it just varies by industry. But sadly, not all accountants are equipping small businesses today with those essentials that they need. And talks like this, resources and charlas like this, I see some of the content you're putting out there, Tony. It's great because there's a shortage, and we've got to do what we can to give back and make sure that there's resources out there that are available.
Yeah, no, awesome. And what happens, I've noticed, is that a small business, before you're a business owner, you're an employee, right? It is un empleado. And you go to the same person who does your family's tax return, who does the 1040, and because they speak Spanish, right? They speak your language, la cultura, there's trust. And then you're like, hola, señora María, tengo un negocio. Okay. And La Señora Maria may or may not be trained to serve business owners. But that's the kind of stuff, like, for example, that Latino Tax Pro does. They want to train these tax and accounting professionals to be better.
And they won't say no. They'll try it.
And they'll try it because
they'll try it out no matter what.
Yeah, which could or going back to Arthur's point, it could or cannot be the best thing, because maybe at first it's okay, but as they're scaling, then they may not be able to serve those needs. So it's a challenge, right? But it's also, as I'm going to show here my screen real quick, it's an opportunity. As of the 2020 census, we're looking at over 60 million Latinos in the U.S. That are generating the U.S. Latino GDP is $2.6 trillion. On the small business side, according to the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we have 4.7 million entrepreneurs that are Latinos and generating over $800 billion of revenue every year. In a growing market, according to this the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Program, over the past 10 years, Latino business owners have grown by 34% compared to 1% for other business owners. So not only is it a huge market, but it's a growing market, it's an underserved market. It's a market that has a lot of challenges, but therefore opportunities. It also skews female. We interviewed our members, our small business owner members on Agozi. We found that 56% are female, and there's no surprise there, right? Las Latinas, trabajadoras, they're starting sus negocios, and also here real quick, they skew 35 to 44. So they're in their 30s and their 40s, and they're a younger demographic compared to other groups. Also, they're bilingual and bicultural. So it's not just Spanish, it's bilingual and bicultural. So I just wanted to throw out some stats there, because that is the market. That's the market that exists. And going back to Cristina, was that the reason Paychex decided to start a Latino Hispanic initiative? I know you told me a story about, I believe your CFO, he saw the need because he's Latino too, right? And then was that the story of how Paychex kind of dove into the Latino market?
It doesn't necessarily tie back to the CFO. I think, right, just naturally, all of the executive team, along with diversity and inclusion within Paychex, which has grown exponentially in the last couple of years, realized, guys, this is a market that is growing beyond our control. If we don't get on this boat, we're going to miss it, right? Like, this community needs our support, it needs our services. They saw that our client number was growing rapidly, and we weren't providing the resources necessary, right? From basic translated services to payroll specialists speaking Spanish. So, I will let you guys know that in the last 6 months, we have hired and customized a Spanish center of excellence, right? In addition to everything being translated, as you see right now, the website, like the paychex.com, we have el Centro de Ayuda de COVID en Español, but we have 12 dedicated payroll specialists that speak only to our Spanish speaking clients, right? And it's a team of its own. It's targeted to any current and new onboarded client that requires Spanish or additional support will report to this. So we're doing what we can in every one of our divisions, right? Because that's just payroll. As far as 401k and HR, we have the most number of bilingual employees that we've ever had. So, we're growing internally and externally. We're ensuring that we're D&I. We also just created kind of like what Jackie was talking about, an ERG. It's a little bit different from an ERG, but we're launching it soon. It's called Caminos, and that'll be dedicated to our Latino community internally. So, not only are we hiring more people, but we're doing everything we can to continue to grow our number of Latino clients. Right now, it's about 12% of our overall client base that requires Spanish support.
Wow. And it's like, again, seeing the numbers there. And my experience is, it's not necessarily, because I've talked to organizations and they say, well, like I can't translate my product and in Spanish, we have it in English. But the thing is, what I've noticed is, as long as like the sales and customer service team, the humans, right? The people that talk to people are bilingual, bicultural, that helps a lot. It kind of serves the purpose.
Yes, and that happens to us often, right? Like this morning we did a 401k presentation, and it's difficult to translate everything because the words just sometimes just don't exist just yet, right? Especially when we're talking about like legal disclaimers and so forth. But as long as the message is conveyed and we provide clarification, it makes sense and we can provide the service.
Jackie, you were going to say?
I was just going to say that in my past life, I used to, before Xero, I studied accounting and most of my career was in auditing. And one of my jobs was a global auditor. And I would go to Latin America to do my audits. And one, it would actually really show me a need for something like Xero. But the reason why because everything was on desktop. But what I was going to mention was that most of the desktop software that we were using, or that we were auditing, because there's different softwares each country used, or each portion of the company would use, they were all in English. And they had, I was doing my audits in Spanish, like interacting and talking to people in Spanish, but all of the computerized information was in English because there was nothing in Spanish. It was very proprietary or small softwares. And it was also really difficult because, this was maybe like 8 years ago. So it was more normal, but everything was on desktop. So I had to fly, to the rainforest in Ecuador to do it, versus whenever you have something like Xero or Paychex is also on the cloud, you don't have to go somewhere to get a printout of a report or to run payroll. You can do it online, right? And so that's the beautiful thing about where we are now. And, with our community, educating them on what's available, because on Xero's website, we have 1,000 apps that are vetted by Xero that you can link Xero up to. We also have thousands more of apps that we haven't actually been able to look at yet, but there's different apps that people can use on top of Xero. So it just becomes like a big world beyond just one software, because you have the open API where people can create what they need for their small business need, or for the accountant themselves, so that they can hook it up to Xero. And so really it's not just about like one software. Once you start getting familiar with the cloud, it really starts translating into, like I said, the apps are just an example, but then you start being able to scale, to be able to do more things with less energy, right? So once you have your processes down, you can do a lot more. And I know Latinos, we work hard. We really, really work hard, but sometimes we don't work smart, and we will work smart if we're given the resources. So that's what I really love about the tool that I'm representing, which is Xero, which it helps them work smarter. And so this is really where the passion comes from, working at Xero and helping the Latinos.
Yeah, no, I love it. And one of the reasons why we have this panel, I want to show everyone that our members and the followers and the Facebook, the YouTube, la escuela en español, la comunidad, toda la raza, like everyone, like there is a team and different huge corporations that are there to serve you. Están aquí para ayudarte desde Houston, Miami, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Chicago. And I met so many people, and there's events this week. Like I'm gonna meet you, Arturo, in San Diego at Latitude. I know there's a U.S. Hispanic Chamber event in Vegas. And so that's where I meet like people from like Allstate Insurance and like all these big organizations, and they all have. What I've noticed, guys, it seems to be just like myself, like the children of immigrants that happen to be born here and be educated in this country. And then now, not all the time, but that's what kind of like the trend I've noticed. And then now we happen to be in corporate America or having our businesses, and we see it's like, whoa, it's up to us. We happen to be bilingual, bicultural. We happen to be, we could understand both languages, and we could be in a big boardroom in DC or eating tacos in East LA with La Comunidad. But that's a unique skill set that we have. And I wanted to let everybody know that we're here to help. So let's just finish off La Charla with, we'll start with Arthur. What are some consejos, some tips that if a big organization says, or any company, some executive will say, how do I reach this market? I see this $1 trillion market. Where do I start? What do you think, Arthur?
Well, if you are interested in serving the largest growing market, the first thing you have to do is look to the left and to the right. And if you don't have the people to do that, then you need to hire the people. And one recruiter alone will not do it. I've seen it done 2 times. I'm sure Cristina can share, Paychex has been around, over 40 years, 50 years, but it's a journey to get to the point where you have translated documents. I'm sure Jackie will tell you the same. Things don't happen overnight. There's a lot of, I'll just say, proof points that need to be brought, right? So the data exists. You've just shown it. And those data points, if you're listening, you should jot down those data points, because you should be building your strategy around it. If you know that 78% of Latinos are bilingual, then maybe not everything you do needs to be in Spanish, right? So if you are a corporation and you're thinking, man, you know how much money it's going to cost to translate my entire product? Like, no, it just doesn't make sense. Well, if you know that 78% are bilingual, then maybe it's just some of your content, and maybe it's more of your end user customer facing and not necessarily your product, or maybe some of your partner materials. So I would say you need to ensure that you mirror the customer. If you're looking to serve the Hispanic, Latino, Latina community, you need people that look like them to connect with them. And that makes the world of a difference. Otherwise, you can spin your wheels on a strategy, and you also have to hire people that have domain experience, right? That connects with the community. So that's the first thing. I mean, that's what I would say is go to where the data is. I know that the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative puts out that report, the one that you reference every year. There's going to be new reports coming out of Latitude next week. And so identify, where's the data, because, in those boardrooms, they want to look at data. So show the data, and the data doesn't lie. So I would say those are my 2 tips that I would share with you, Tony, and the audience.
Awesome. Thank you. And let me share that with you as I go on. Jackeline, what's your consejo? What's your tip to another, even like your bosses or some executives in some other organization of like how to kind of better serve the Latino market?
Yeah, I think when you're trying to serve any market or trying to grow in any way, I think the biggest thing you can do is just listen to your customer. Really listen to what they want. Because I think a lot of times when you talk about like maybe CEO or leadership level, the distance between them and the end user is really long. And so there's some things that get lost in translation. So it's really listening to what they need. Because I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to differentiate. I think that's what's differentiated Xero, that we're really willing to listen and be human with our customers. But especially when you're trying to move into a new market, really trying to listen and understand what they need. Because if you try to approach it the same way as you approach a traditional partner, it's not going to really work out. So you need to listen. And, we touched on this before. There might be a little bit more hand holding. And exactly like what Arthur said, you need the right people in order to do that. But just to really identify what they need specifically, you got to listen.
Yes, indeed. And just, yeah, because you're right, at times, you know, as an executive or if you're running a division, you have, even at the highest level, you have shareholders to answer to, or government regulators, or you got to manage the team that manage the company. I say, like, walk the streets with some of your reps, right? Go get some lunch with some end users and just hang out and just see what they're up to. So I agree with you. And Cristina, last but not least, of course, consejos para la comunidad.
That's true, but I don't necessarily think I could see myself with my CFO hitting the streets, you know, knocking on doors. I'm trying to go back to the days when I was a sales consultant, but this is, everything I'm thinking is very much shadowing what Arthur and Jackie just said, right? Like, get to know your audience. But I think back to when I was a sales rep versus that gap between my CFO, who's also Puerto Rican, there was like 20 people in between, right? For me to like reach up to the top and you know, relay a message. So I think it's imperative, number one, to hire the right people. But like to Arthur's point, you can't just get one recruiter and say, I need a bunch of bilingual reps. You can't do that, because I think a lot of these organizations are doing that. And there's a huge difference between speaking the language and being cultured, right? Knowing the culture, being a part of that culture and speaking the language. And there's a big gap. And, you know, to Jackie had mentioned it earlier, it's important for these folks to identify with someone and feel, you know, some sense of familiarity. So I would say, you know, you have to start with, I want to call it diversity and inclusion, like have someone focus on hiring that one person that's going to grow that arena, and then hire a number of, you know, different recruiters, different representatives, call it, you know, what you want, its own department, but it needs to start with one lead, because leaving it to the executives, right? Like Arthur mentioned, they want numbers, they want data. We can provide that, but we need someone else to kind of take charge and grow that division separately. But it all starts with their support and their, you know, them saying, yes, we're going to do this. We're going to cater to this market. Let's start with that one person that can then, you know, grow that division. I feel like it needs its own channel at any organization.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys. Muchísimas gracias por su tiempo. From Arthur García, from SOMOS Ancestría, Jackeline Velez with Xero, y final, Cristina Huizar from Paychex. Good consejos, good charla. And we need to do this more often. I haven't seen you guys in a while. We were just talking about, obviously we haven't seen each other in person, but we should at least see each other virtually. Gracias. See you guys soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
Tony.
It's good
Bye.
seeing you.